Sorry, just reprimanding my children. I'm trying to mute myself before reprimanding my children to go easy on the internet.
You know what I would say though, for the audience, this was probably easier on the ears than our 10-minute intro of baseball baloney with Steven a while ago. I think this is more tolerable to some.
All right, is that any better?
Say more.
This better was.
No. Mark Tomlin says, "Lol for real. Download the app on your phone."
All right, give me your. I'm gonna download the app. You give me your take on our predictions from last year.
Our predictions. All right. Well, I will kick it off. So happy New Year, everyone, as Brian maybe said and maybe didn't. What a year. I was listening back to some of the predictions. Brian, I think in addition to the predictions, we made a resolution. And the resolution was to start posting podcast episodes of this. And it only took us until March or May or something to make that real. And we did. So in addition to predictions last year, we made this resolution. And after that, we had my favorite stat was that we had 58,000 downloads of the podcast. And on YouTube, we had 18,000 hours of listening, which equates to 2 years worth of listening. So in the single year, we had 2 years worth of listeners. When it comes to predictions from last year, I got to say, I was very proud of my Web3 prediction. And I feel like
it was.
I mean, I don't want to throw my shoulder out, patting myself on the back, but I said that Web3 was going to be dead and we weren't going to be talking about it. And we barely remember what it was. And I think that may be a little far, but I think we can agree that it's pretty dead. We're not really talking about it.
It is definitely not. Yeah, I think that we had not recorded our predictions prior to this past year. So prior to this past year, when you and I made predictions together, we have had to rely on our collective self-interested memories as we've recalled the predictions of one another. But it was interesting. I assume you listened to that episode.
I did. Yes. And I know that I said explicitly that this was my heart talking and not my head talking.
Right. And so,
but score one from heart.
Hey, score for heart. Hey, suck it, head. Heart. The heart takes it home.
What do you know?
Exactly. What do you know? Stupid head, constantly getting us in trouble. Heart knows all the answers. Right. Then I also regretted the fact that we only gave ourselves one Web3 prediction apiece.
I have no regrets about that because I feel like otherwise it would just be. I mean, it was just too tempting. It was just too tempting.
I think you were all probably right on our predictions. I mean,
your big Web3 prediction was a 1 year flame out, like a big flame out of Web3. You're claiming credit for that one?
I mean, of course, absolutely. Not only am I claiming credit, well, so in particular, I claimed that there would be a big Web3 flame out, and that both Web3 advocates and its malcontents would claim vindication. So yes. I'm going to take full credit with that one on a specific flame out. At the Luna Terra flameout that happened in March.
Yeah. Okay. So, that didn't take long.
I really do feel like I was very, very close to the top of it. And I think you got from everybody. You got Steven his reader prediction that Web3 was going to be the next web van, and us qualifying with that. I mean, I think that everyone was very skeptical. Was a skeptic about Web3, and we were all basically thinking it's this technologists, and I think Kelsey had said he'd never seen technologists so divided, I think that we were all basically those skeptics and cynics were vindicated. So yeah, I'm taking full credit for that one for sure. I feel that with Luna and Terra, and I do feel like the FTX bailout of Celsius in particular was you did have this moment early in 2022 where there were people who were welcoming the culling of the herd, and the weaker among them were being eliminated. But course, the whole premise is flawed, and now we saw that with FTX and now the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Another prediction from last year that that I really enjoyed was, and I had forgotten, Laura predicted that Discord was going to screw it up. That like Discord was going to lose the plot and alienate their users, and that was going to be it for them. And Laura emailed me with a statement that she asked me to read.
She's prepared a statement that
Yeah, that's
asked you to
right.
read.
She Laura, she says she may not be able to join because she may be giving birth, or she may be asleep because the baby is making her sleep. But she says, my 2022 prediction was that Discord would make everyone mad. I'm actually very pleased this didn't happen and Discord is still going strong. Part of me is still a cynic and thinks that someone will try to come up with some boneheaded strategy to make the revenue line go up even more. But I'd also like to believe that Discord and its investors really, really understand the core product at this point and will not do anything to distract from that. This does not count as a prediction, but you may all still hold me to that statement. So,
wow, it sounds like that was almost prepared at the request of an investor in Discord. It feels like there's a, but I think Laura actually, I think she's underselling herself a little bit in that she made a very important observation about the rise of Discord and the importance of Discord. Witness the fact that we're here. I mean, Twitter's implosion is not something that anyone saw, and it's amazing how much can change in a year. That it would just have seemed very implausible a year ago. So many more one-year predictions. There's really no action on, and then you get these things that are just like explosive that we've not seen, which is makes it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks who are here, if you want to join and share a prediction, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you, and you can we'll call on you and you can share what you think is coming. Brian, do you want to open it up first, or do you want to lead off, or do you want to close it out, or what do you want to do?
Well, I mean, I kind of had this fantasy of getting to better audio, but how
good. Then why don't we wait for your better audio? But I'm gonna share. I'm gonna start with. I'm gonna sprinkle mine out over the next hour or whatever. But I did want to share one. I feel like 1 year predictions are hard because they basically already need to be true. Viz your Web3 prediction. But my 1 year prediction is that 2023 is going to be the year of tech workers unionizing. So, and some of that's going to be precipitated by increasing return to work or feelings of imposing on the work-life balance and work styles that folks have. They're going to see tech workers who previously weren't really that unionized starting to unionize.
Are we talking union in the legal sense? I mean, this is like local to.
I'm not talking about like a C structure. Yes, I mean as a like you're paying dues into the union, collective bargaining, that kind of structure.
Wow. Okay, so this is like real. Yes, it seems not possible. Writing software.
Yes, people writing software in a union.
And that's a 1 year.
I'll take that's a 1 year prediction. That's gonna be the zeitgeist of this year. Yes. Swinging for the fences. TFPK, you joined. Give us your predictions. How you doing?
I'm doing well. My name's Tom, by the way. I just go by TFPK on the internet. The internet. No, thank you. So I've got 3 predictions, 1, 3, and 6. One of them is a sort of safety prediction, and it'll be interesting to see if you can figure out which one that is. So my 1 year prediction is that I think that all of the good chat AI systems, like ChatGPT, that they will all be expensive enough that their frivolous use declines significantly, but they'll still be significantly used in academic misconduct because it's cheaper than all the alternatives.
Still the cheapest way to cheat. Love it.
Yes. So I think that one I don't know if you want me to talk about it or just to go through all of them. What's easier?
No, go.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it, Brian.
I went with a sketchy robot voice, cell phone in a tunnel. No, I think this is going to be a big theme this year. I think among the predictions. So, Tom, I'll put it on a little bit. What do you see out there? 'Cause I've got some predictions in this domain as well. So I'd be curious for you to provide some more context there.
I mean, both of those statements are basically based on one piece of context each. So the expensive stuff, I mean, Microsoft was talking about how expensive it was to run one of these AI systems, and I think they're only going to get more expensive. And so I think that the sort of cost benefit analysis of like the research value of having lots of people use it and the publicity value of everyone seeing how cool it is will start to be outweighed by like these instances cost a heck of a lot of money. So that's why I think that they're going to become more expensive. And I think that's going to push out a lot of the silly use, like people, posting to Stack Overflow with this kind of stuff. Like that's no longer going to make sense if you have to pay money for it, especially if it's like a per use payment of money as opposed to like a, sign up for a subscription per month. And then, I mean, I've been working at a university for the last couple of years, and we're already seeing like stuff that looks a lot like people using AI to cheat. So, and knowing how much it costs to pay a ghostwriter to complete an assignment, like it's not a lot of money, but it's more money than it's going to cost to have an AI do it. So that's why I said that.
Do you have a sense of what the per use cost is? And I know that I'm sure that varies based on the content and so forth, but do you have a sense of it?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't have a good sense of it, but I'll say something. I reckon somewhere in the range of like maybe a couple of cents per use, or maybe a little bit more than that. But like it'll very much be like the AWS style of pricing in tiny increments so that you don't notice it until you're using it 100,000 times, and then AWS is making all their money, or in this case, Microsoft is making all of the money.
Huh. Adam, is my audio better?
It is better. Welcome.
Is it better, or do you just want to stop talking about it? It's fine.
It's legitimately better. I can hear 4 out of 5 words. No, 5 out of 5 words.
5 out of 5. We'll listen again. Okay, good. All right, I'm in on the app, so score 1 for the app. Yeah, so definitely interesting stuff on it. And so, Tom, if you think that the cost of this is just going to become exorbitant?
I don't think it's going to be exorbitant, but I think it's going to be big enough that a lot of the uses that we've seen so far, which are just sort of, like people trying to post it to Stack Overflow, or people using it just to do something funny or like that kind of thing, is going to go away, because the moment that you have to attach a credit card to doing that sort of thing, it's already going to be more effort than a lot of people are going to want to put in, I suspect. But I think that there will be, serious applications of it that will start being used. That's why I said like frivolous use will decline, but I do think they're going to be a massive part of the next couple of years, and I suspect that other people have predictions related to that as well.
Yeah. So, and actually, and Adam, maybe now that hopefully you can hear me, we can set. A couple of reminders for folks. If you could, when you make your predictions, if you could write them down and submit them as a PR when we put up the show notes, it's, I think, really helpful. So, Tom, if you wouldn't mind, as you write down, as you make your 1 year and 3 year, 6 year predictions, definitely write them down so we make sure we get them right. And it was. Adam, I thought it was really helpful that you put the marker in the audio so we could go listen to the actual context surrounding it. I
didn't do that. Like someone much more helpful than I did, like from last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That sadly that was on me. But I would say also PRs can go up. Like right now, there is a placeholder for the notes for today, so you don't even have to wait for tomorrow or whatever. So make your predictions and note the time and throw them up there. That'd be tremendously helpful.
And then, Tom, do you have 3 and 6 year predictions related to either large language models or OpenAI or ChatGPT or what have you?
So I tried to keep them all quite different on the basis that it's more interesting if different people come up with different stuff, but I don't want to steal other people's time to contribute. So I'm happy to go through them all to wait till later if that's better.
Go for it, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So my 3-year prediction is that a new trend called something stupid like Web 3 or Web 4 will emerge. It's probably going to be to do with either AI or the metaverse. And I wrote metaverse in like SpongeBob text. And some people are going to make a lot of money off it, but time will prove that it's a fad.
Feels like an evergreen.
Feels like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Will all the investors like have a pile in behind it and then pretend it never happened? Sounds right.
This also sounds very likely. If it wasn't obvious, this one was my safety prediction. I wasn't sure what to say, and I thought, there's no way that this doesn't happen.
It does feel pretty safe, I gotta say. I kind of want to make you bolder in terms of, all right, so metaverse, is this going to be a pro metaverse fad, or is this going to be an anti metaverse fad?
I think it's going to be a pro metaverse fad. It's going to be, new system that everyone is buying. Probably not made by Facebook. I mean, maybe made by Meta. Probably not made by Meta. Like, I reckon it'll be some other company that starts selling something, and everyone starts swearing by, this amazing new thing is going to revolutionize X, and then a large community is going to form around how great X is, and then we're all going to realize that X actually provides no additional utility, and therefore, people will invest a lot of money in it, and it'll turn out to be not much.
And when we say metaverse, are we? Because I kind of feel, Adam, when you say metaverse, are you implying VR? Because I feel like I'm implying VR when I mean, I'm like, it's Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse.
I'm not even clear on what that is. So I don't know whether it's more VR or more AR. But yeah, I don't know.
I could even see it being some advanced form of like Second Life. That people start saying, because that's what we're already seeing is online spaces that are effectively kind of games that also have other aspects to them as well. And it might just be a new Second Life that people say this is going to revolutionize the web, and then doesn't.
And Adam, is your teenager into VR at all?
No. In fact, he used to be briefly. We have gone through multiple headsets.
Yeah,
but it's over.
So the same for us. Multiple. Went through a headset, and actually, it's funny because he and I were comparing notes, and he's kind of kept track of that headset, which has been bought and sold by like 7 different kids, and I'm like, that's kind of a bad sign. He's like, no, it's definitely a bad sign, because his view on it is like, this is fun for a little bit. For a little period of time, a short period of time, when you are by yourself. Have you been in the room when someone has got VR goggles on?
Oh, it's hilariously ridiculous. Yes, absolutely.
And why is it that the animal brain is overwhelmed with the desire to screw with that person? I mean, overwhelming. Is that just me?
No, I think that is or at least photograph them.
This is everyone.
No, totally. Yeah.
Right. It's like
I don't know if you guys.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
No. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, I don't know if you've seen that game that's like walking on a plank. The only time I've ever played VR with anybody else in the room was showing them this game, getting them to pretend to walk on the plank, which looks like it's 50 stories in the air, and then going up behind them and either whispering or pushing them or something like that, which I realize outs me as a terrible, terrible person.
No, I think it just.
But I feel like they kind of signed up for it.
I feel this is like super deep in the animal brain. I feel the same way around. I worked for Samsung briefly, and the Samsung campus in Mountain View has these Samsung robots that patrol it, that are like these cones that are like 5-foot tall cones.
Are these like armed Roombas?
They are unarmed Roombas. And it is the least menacing robot imaginable, and I have never wanted to run something over more. I mean, I feel I'm generally like a rule abider, and I'm like, I want to destroy this thing. So yeah, Tom, I think you're in good company. All right, so but you think we have a pro metaverse 3-year prediction, and then do you have a 6-year prediction?
I do indeed. This one is probably going to be the most controversial. Well, it might be. We'll see. My 6-year prediction is that a large or prestigious university starts teaching their CS1 course in Rust, and then time reveals that it was a mistake to do so.
Oh, I think that's a. I don't think that's a controversial prediction. I think it's a fair prediction. I think that reminds me of like Adam. Adam took your first CS course was an accelerated course that was taught in Scheme, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I took the course in Java, but I TA'd and helped develop the course in Scheme and then ML. Yeah.
And so I think it's like, actually, I wonder if that first CS course will be, if you will bifurcate that first CS course into folks that are ready for a more advanced introduction course, and like a course for concentrators versus a course for non-concentrators or something within that. Because Rust would be, I don't know, Adam, what do you think about Rust as a first?
The first, first of all, we both said jump to first language, but
it's not first language. Yeah.
In 2029, right? In the distant future, like, will this really be the first language? Like, for some entering freshmen, certainly, but for a lot, like, they'll have dabbled in at least a couple of languages.
Yeah.
So maybe at that point they'll be ready for that kind of level of programming language sophistication. Although, Tom, I do like the parlay bet, which is that they will regret this choice. But I think that actually happens.
I think that's probably the more controversial part of it. Sorry.
No. It's an interesting one, because I think that universities do this a fair bit, where they have some bifurcation of the intro and they try it out, and often it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And there's a cohort of folks that they sort of need to fix along the way. And I think that's not impossible in this case.
I think it's interesting because talking to quite a few people in the Rust community, I think people have been saying, especially the Rust EDU group, which I recently became involved in and seems really awesome. But one of their goals is to try and teach CS1 in Rust, or to make it possible to teach it in Rust. And I still have some very big reservations about teaching CS1 in Rust, in the same way that I know people who are prominent in the C++ community have reservations about teaching C++ as a first language. And I'm speaking as somebody who's
language.
Well, okay. But I helped teach a Rust course at a university last term, and I don't think we could possibly have taught it to first or even most second years at the university and had anywhere near the same level of understanding. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see, either I'll be wrong and Rust will make big strides to be much more, I don't want to say beginner friendly, but at least sensible to teach in CS1, or we'll see courses try and use it and then realize that it's actually not a good fit for a lot of their students.
It's really interesting, I think, not just through the thought of the evolution of the language, but the evolution of the documentation and our familiarity teaching the language and so forth. So there's a lot of ancillary stuff, as you allude to, Tom, that facilitates that. I think it's a really interesting one.
It is.
Brian, from our alma mater, I talked to the systems professor, Tom Deppner, and asked him about Rust. And he said, I don't really see a place for it in the curriculum. And he is tasked with not
wow.
Yeah,
the curriculum. I mean, this is like borderline. It does not have a right to exist. I mean, this is like pretty extreme.
I thought it was pretty interesting.
For what it's worth. Sorry, Adam.
Please, no, please, Tom.
And I don't want to derail this into a discussion about teaching Rust at universities and universities in general, which is a whole separate topic. But I think one of the troubles with universities is because a lot of them, at least my university, teaches sort of discrete concepts in different courses. You've got the networking course and the operating systems course. Rust really doesn't fit well into any of those disciplines because it's too big to be able to talk about any one discipline with it, but it's too but it's not its own discipline. You can't have, unless you want to run a Rust course, which is what we did. Often universities don't want to run a course about a particular language, and there's very valid reasons for doing that. But then, if you're going to teach Rust for the operating systems course, not only do you have to teach operating systems, which are already a large topic, you've also then got to teach Rust and explain why it's better than C. If you want to teach networking in Rust, it's the same problem of Rust is too big to justify teaching it in a particular concept-related course. And unless you can justify teaching a Rust-related course, it's very hard to fit in.
I mean, it would feel like it would fit in kind of the software engineering course, kind of a second year, second semester kind of software engineering course. I mean, that same professor had us. I mean, and Adam, you were describing kind of courses that may have gone too far, a bridge too far in terms of getting too aggressive, retooling things. And he did exactly that with C++, and it was way too early for C++, and it was a mess. And there was a lot of pain, people hitting compiler bugs and a bunch of other issues, and not getting, Tom, just to your point, not able to get the abstractions that you're trying to teach about the operating system because they're so lost in the abstractions about the language. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to the blog entry is going to be like, whoops, I rewrote the course in Rust. Is that the one I'm looking for in 6 years, Tom?
Yeah, I think that may be what we see, or at least what we'll see. I mean, maybe it's not 6 years because universities move so glacially slowly, but in 6 years, it's people starting to have discussions about, was this the right choice, or universities that have written their course in Rust starting to look at other languages, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one.
Good predictions. All right, should we want to get someone else up here, Adam?
Yeah, pulling up Ben, and then back. You are next. Tom, thanks for joining.
Thanks so much.
Ben, what do you have?
Yeah, so I have 3 predictions. First, and this is the 1 year, so it's basically already happening. Tree borrows is going to be implemented in Miri by Ralph and this person I've not seen yet, except for one small PR. And people will be excited that it theoretically supports programming patterns that stacked borrows does not permit, but it will ultimately not have a huge impact on the amount of aliasing you be in the ecosystem.
So I think you may want to define some terms there.
Yeah. So stacked borrows is the existing prototype aliasing model for Rust. It describes how you can interleave, if at all, uses of references and raw pointers. It's based generally off of the similar behavior you get from safe code. If you just have references, you can create, for example, multiple mutable references so long as you use them in a strict stack discipline. So if you only use the most recently created mutable reference, you can then sort of back up and use an older one so long as you don't go forward and try to use a newer one again.
And all of this is effectively implicit. The programmer has to have kind of an intuitive feel that this is happening.
Yes. In safe code, you don't have to worry about this. The borrow checker just handles this effectively. But in unsafe code, it's tricky. This bounds the aliasing optimizations that you can tell LLVM about or implement yourself. And checking it requires a substantial runtime, which is what Miri provides. But the problem with tree borrows is that while I'm pretty sure it will fix this particular programming pattern that people refer to as reference to header, where you want to pass access to a larger data structure to a function by passing a reference to just a component of it, turning the reference into a pointer, and then offsetting that outside the size of the referent. This is a programming pattern that does exist. It's very useful.
Yes.
But as far as
it's brutal,
aware,
it is brutal. I use this pattern a lot in C, and breaking this pattern for me was a big part of learning Rust and accepting that pattern was no longer going to be part of what I just like that it was, because I was really trying hard to get this to work. I thought of it as intrusive data structures, where you've got a data structure within a data structure and you're passing that embedded data structure mutably. Of course, in C, it's all mutable, but and it is. So, I mean, we use this in the operating system kernel to implement. So you can have a single kind of object that is present on many different data structures because of all these embedded data structures within it. But that is just like Rust is like, no, you're not doing this.
So like in the Lumus kernel, that's for AVL trees and linked lists.
Yep.
Everywhere, like all over the place.
Everywhere. And it's nice in that you can have a single thing, a Z node that is on like 6 different trees at once. Right. But it's a pattern. So that's interesting. So this will allow that kind of pattern, Ben.
Yeah, so the supposed, and again, right, there's no implementation, so I can't, or it's not completed yet. The biggest change with tree borrows is that turning a pointer into a reference doesn't shrink its provenance to the size of the referent. So you can then cast back to a raw pointer and offset it outside the size of the referent, right? So if you have, an array of U8s, right, you get a pointer which has provenance over the whole array, You then turn that into a reference to the first element. You can then turn that back into a pointer and then offset it to another element of the array, for example. Or you could do it with like struct casting right to access members.
What impact did you say this was going to have on undefined behavior?
Yeah, this will make certain patterns. For example, people have code bases where they've used the reference to header pattern, and they're basically, because Ralph has been saying for years now that he will eventually make it well defined, they're basically like crossing their fingers and trying to test with Miri as best they can. With Miri stacked borrows implementation just saying they have UB, they're just sort of hoping that it's going to be fine once Miri is able to check it with a more permissive aliasing model. The problem is that you will still have aliasing requirements to uphold about the regions which you offset this round-tripped pointer into. And I'm not sure how much people will be able to uphold those requirements.
When you say people able to uphold, you mean are people? I've lost track if people is the programmer or the compiler.
Yeah. The programmer.
Okay. And so this is going to prevent effectively alias disambiguation as an optimization.
No, alias disambiguation will still exist. You as the programmer will have some complicated invariant to maintain about how you access the memory that you want to then turn this reference back into a pointer and then access. So you'll still have some sort of aliasing obligation. I don't know exactly what it is, but there will be some.
Got it. Well, this is a 1 year prediction. So this is, you see this on this must be work that's well underway.
Yeah, as far as I can tell.
Neat. Yeah, and Adam, do you use Miri a lot?
No, I've never used it. How about you?
I have not, but we've got certainly many of our colleagues have, and it's something I would like to. I mean, I also really just try to avoid writing. I get so scared now when I'm writing unsafe code that I really do try to. I try to stick it. Try to keep it pretty safe and pretty defined.
Yeah, no, you and me both. I think I've made. I mean, this is not a controversial opinion, but like unsafe Rust feels much more unsafe than regular C, and I feel much more over my skis on those.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ben, good 1 year prediction. What do you have? You said you got a 3 year and a 6 year too?
Yep, 3 years. Rust will have another IR, and it will be an SSA IR that will be used to implement some interesting new optimizations on Mir to reduce the amount of LLVM IR that the compiler emits. But,
okay, what's an SSA IR?
Yeah. So LLVM has this IR form called static single assignment. Basically, all of your variables are immutable, and you can only write to them once. So this makes a whole bunch of data flow facts and transformations very simple, but you need to like get into SSA form first, and that's not always easy. But there's a but on this one. While this will theoretically make the Rust compiler faster, people will build greater abstractions in that time, especially with upcoming new features in Rust, and overall people will not notice the compile time improvement.
So this is. I was going to ask what the net of this is a compile time improvement.
Yes, that is the idea for a lot of Mir optimizations. Yeah, is to just cut down the amount of IR that you shift to the next stage of the compiler.
But that's interesting. But no, because I would have actually honestly guessed that you're cutting down on the IR to allow it to generate better code, but it's actually to just cut down on the amount of work it needs to go do.
Well, so that's mostly the 6 year prediction.
Here we go. 6 year. By the way, you have to promise to come back in 1, 3, and 6 year predictions exactly to help us. Adam, I can just imagine you be like, okay, I've been searching the internet for the last 3 hours, and I still can't tell if this prediction came true or not. Like,
that's right. I'm on the Internet Archive searching for what we meant by SSA in 2023. Right.
So yeah, what's your 6 year?
So this was like 2 weeks ago. Rust formed a new team called the Operational Semantics team, and their job, as opposed to the language team, is to specify all the semantics for unsafe code that we haven't pinned down yet, including aliasing and validity, all sorts of other horrifying things that need to be figured out. There are a number of people, most notably Patrick Walton, who are chomping at the bit to have semantics pinned down so that they can implement very interesting optimizations. So in 6 years, I'm predicting that Rust will be widely regarded as a faster language than C and C++ on account of these optimizations having been implemented.
That's really interesting. My experience is that for for a bunch of stuff that I do, it already is a faster language because the abstractions are better. And C's lack of composability makes it really, really hard to implement certain kinds of data structures in ways that can be actually reused. And Rust, by contrast, so it makes it really easy. So not that I've when I took a stopwatch to a particular program that I was in C and I rewrote in Rust, I was shocked when my Rust was like 30% faster, and it was 30% faster because it was able to use a B tree, and my C was using an AVL tree, and because a B tree in C is absolutely brutal. But yeah, that's exciting. That's definitely exciting.
Yep.
Those are good predictions. Good stuff. Very Rustation predictions.
Thank you. Talking my book.
There you go. Absolutely.
I've invited back up, and because that's slow, I've also invited Ian up. Let's see, there we go. Back. Here you are. Can you hear us? And Ian. Ian, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Terrific. Welcome back. What do you have? 1, 3, and 6 year predictions?
To be clear, are you welcoming me back, or are you welcoming back?
Oh, Ian, you have the mic. Why don't you tell us what's going to happen?
Wait, who's on first? Yeah,
that's right.
So my 1 year following the advice that this should already be happening. I think for the 1 year, salary ranges will be posted for all tech job postings in the US within the next year. So if you go and look at a tech job,
I think the unions are going to insist on it. I agree.
Yeah, this is mostly driven by legislation that is already passed in Colorado and New York, and legislation that's about to come into effect in California and Washington State. But most of the big players have basically said too hard, particularly because they have remote available postings. It's easier to just give a salary range for every single job posting.
With some companies offering some absurd ranges. I believe that there was a Netflix posting that had like the range went into 7 figures. It had a huge range. So I mean, I think I kind of think that like posting salary ranges is kind of the least we can ask of folks. So I'm glad that folks are going to be able to meet this kind of bare minimum. But yeah, Ian, good prediction. Certainly at Oxide, it's really simple. So we definitely post our salary range. It's a very tight range.
Yeah, it is going to be pretty humorous to start off with. I think there's going to be some pretty crazy ranges posted. I do kind of wonder if it's going to cause the mix of compensation to further shift towards RSUs and other compensation that they don't have to necessarily post in that range versus or vice versa, whether they're going to start paying a higher salary and lower stock-based compensation to be able to pump that number that is public. I kind of wonder how the incentives are going to play out there.
I see, but cynically, you're figuring the number kind of doesn't move, but rather the bookkeeping around it changes.
With both your prediction though and Adam's prediction, you've got kind of the tech worker in the driver's seat. And do you not see a coming bust at all I mean, I think with every major company laying folks off, I don't know. I mean, I certainly agree with you that it is companies should do this, but I don't know that they're going to be. It feels like the tech workers are going to have less control than they've had in previous years.
Oh, I think that they're definitely going to, like, the prediction of whether they're going to post salary ranges is easy. I think that they're going to, because their hand is forced by legislation. I think the part that is going to be interesting is to see exactly how that the kind of second and third order effects of salary being a more public concept.
Yes.
Where many tech jobs have previously kept salary ranges pretty closely under wraps, when that information comes out to the worker, I kind of wonder how the incentives play out, whether that plays out to paying more in salary because it is something that is public and comparable from job to job easily, or if it means paying less of a range in salary and more of a range in bonus and RSU where the numbers can be played with in a hidden manner. I'm not exactly sure how the incentives are going to play out, and that's kind of interesting.
I mean, I definitely feel that salaries being with salary ranges not being disclosed, companies often let themselves get out negotiated. I feel by employees, and especially brassy ones. I mean, one of the part of the folks I'm sure are aware, but we are transparent about our compensation at Oxide. We also happen to be uniform about our compensation. But part of my observation was that that salary negotiation rewards the brassy, not necessarily the people that are actually the best. You don't, unless you are hiring someone to be a salary negotiator, in which case you should pay the best negotiator the highest salary. It does not make sense to. And so I wonder if you're just going to have tighter range as more employers are like, hey, look, we would love to pay you more, but sorry, this is the posted range. You're a good negotiator, but you're at the top of the range.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out, but I think it's going to be super interesting to see how the dynamics change as that information is public. I mean, the information was semi-public via anonymous postings on Glassdoor and Levels and other sites of similar nature. So people did have some level of understanding of what those numbers look like, but only if their company was of a certain size. And even then, the numbers are like, I'm not sure how much you trust the anonymous posters on those sites to give a full truth.
Yeah, maybe not that much. All right, good 1 year prediction. What's your 3 year?
My 3 year is around large language models, and I think that at a 3 year range, search engines are going to be really struggling with spam due to large language models making it easier to generate large amounts of content with not necessarily a large amount of human input. I think that that's going to kind of explode the already existing spam problems that they're struggling with, and that's going to be a real challenge for general purpose search engines.
So search engines become unusable because there's such a volume of spam content, and they're not good enough at effectively spam filtering or deciphering what's real content from what's just confident generated spam.
This is the problem with these large language models, is like they believe everything that they're told on the internet. So this is how they end up being racists and everything else, why they have to correct because they just inhale the internet. And I've wondered about this too, Ian, like what happens when these models start inhaling their own bullshit and they believe that they're certain because they read the result generated from some other model or themselves that was totally certain. Ian, do you think we're going to have? I think we're already seeing some efforts to use trained neural nets to actually differentiate human written content from large language model authored content. And you wonder if that's where we're going to see a lot of intellectual endeavor.
I'm sure that there's going to be continued arms races on that front of language models generating more and more believable content, as well as search engines and others coming up with ways to detect automatically generated content from those language models. I think that there will come a point where it becomes difficult to write a tool to detect the content generated by those language models without a high false positive rate knocking out genuine user generated content. So I think that is going to be a real challenge, and I think that there's always an arms race between the people generating spam and the people trying to sift through that spam to find useful signal to serve up on search engine result pages. I just think that in this 3 year time frame, we're going to see the scales kind of towards the spammers even further, and it's going to be a real challenge to dig out from underneath that within a 3-year time frame.
Yeah, interesting. It does remind me of.
Prediction.
Did you ever read David Macaulay's Motel of Mysteries, Adam, as a kid?
No, I haven't. No.
Do you know who David Macaulay is?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Castle and
Totally.
some of these other
Castle and City, Pyramid. So David Macaulay wrote this book that was just delightful that I loved to read as a kid, called Motel of Mysteries. The premise of which was that the world, it was, I'm reminded of this, Ian, because you're saying the world being buried by garbage. The U.S. Postal Service makes mail free, and the world is instantly buried in junk mail. So there's this apocalypse of junk mail, and the world is buried, and the year is 3000 and something, and an archaeologist has found a motel that the archaeologist infers to be a temple. And it is all about the misinterpretation of things from the 80s in particular, and it's all very much in the style of the Tomb of Tutankhamun. But one of the pieces that definitely struck with me was the future archaeologist's wife demonstrating the ceremonial headdress, and it is a toilet seat that she's wearing around her head with the toilet lid up behind her head and sanitized for your protection. The band holding it onto her forehead. It's really, very, very well done. So this is what's going to happen, Ian, when the world is buried in garbage that it has created. We are not going to be able to know what's real and what's not anymore, and future archaeologists are going to misinterpret what we were doing.
Yeah, I think the Internet Archive definitely has an interesting job there as well, right? Where
totally,
what I think the from an archival standpoint, you probably want to archive all of this content, but on the other hand, do they have to become more selective as to what they archive? I don't know. It's a challenging problem.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, what's your 6 year?
My 6 year is around the AR VR space. I think within the 6 year time frame, Apple both releases and then pulls out of the VR AR market due to a lack of adoption. So they release something in the next, 1 to 2 years. There's some rumors that it's going to be this fall, but I think that within 6 years they'll pull out of the market because they are unsuccessful in getting mass adoption for this product.
Love it. I also love just to Tom's prediction as well. I love the parlay where you've got like the two predictions. I think it's great. That's a great prediction. Yeah, because that seems plausible. I think that's a good one. So
yeah, I love the 6 years in particular because it's just enough time to feel like not only could someone do something crazy, but they could also regret it.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Apple also have had a number of surprise hits in the hardware space where you look at the AirPods business and you would say that prior to AirPods coming out, Bluetooth headphones were not cool. If you saw someone wearing Bluetooth headphones and talking down the street, you would think that they were generally not super cool. But they managed to turn around that perception and image and produce a product that has generated a huge amount of business for them in the AirPods line. Apple Watch has also gone pretty well. So I feel like this is, it's a bit of an interesting prediction because Apple has managed to turn around these markets that previously were uncool and make it into something that worked. But I feel like they're going to not be able to make it happen for VR and AR. For a number of different reasons. I think the pricing is going to be crazy, and I feel like the number of people who are going to get value out of an AR headset or a VR headset is pretty low in practice. I think it's a very cool gimmick to play around with, and then you kind of get
absolutely
over it, which I think is what we've seen.
Absolutely. I also feel like this is something that Adam, do we want to intersperse our predictions or do we want to, because I do.
If you've got a germane one, drop it in, sure.
I believe that Meta renames itself to Facebook. So this is
what year? What year is this?
Well, so I've been vacillating this entire time on this being a 3-year prediction versus a 6-year prediction. Hart says, Head is actually regretting that it's even along for the ride. Hart says 3-year, Head says 6-year. I'm going to be inspired by the victory of your own heart this past year, and I'm going to make this a 3-year prediction. So Meta renames itself Facebook alphabet style. The Meta still exists. It only exists for Zuck's vision of the metaverse, and Zuckerberg has been convinced to step down as CEO of Facebook and to run the metaverse entity. So that
this is quite a parlay. Oh my goodness, a lot of stuff going on.
This is like right now. Head is throwing up in a trash can as Hart has the
mic. Someone take the microphone away from Hart.
Hart is gone. Where is Hart? Hart was in. Oh my God, Hart's got the mic. And I know that this is like, I mean, this is stupid at many different levels, and not least that he's got that. This is something that he would need to do of his own volition. That there's no amount of shareholder activism that can get him out of the company. But this idea that he has is a stinker, and I feel that everybody knows it. And I feel that I've yet to encounter any real person who's like, no, I want to live my life with a headset on. And the fact that when my own 15-year-old washed out of it, and then when we watched that headset get sold, I'm like, this is not good, man. If you've not won the 15-year-olds for this, this is gonna. I mean, it's interesting, it's cool, it's neat, but it's neat for like a game, and it's neat. It's small. It's not a big thing. It's a small thing. It's an important thing. Yeah. Small thing. So yeah, that is my 3-year. Maybe I'll just to get them out there. So I can only go to one spot in the recording. Do you mind if I give a 1 year and a 6 year?
Go for it. Yeah.
So 1 year, Musk is out of both Twitter and Tesla, neither of his own volition.
Well, okay. So how does he get kicked out of Twitter, not of his own volition? Like
debt holders. So I think the way he structured that, I think the debt holders are, and I think that is going to look less like him being fired and more like him being persuaded to find someone else, and the debt holders finding someone else and then more or less forcing him to take it. And
not in charge of software and servers
right. So I think I should say out as CEO. So not necessarily involved in Twitter, but out as CEO of Twitter. And it's just very clear a year from now. Not that it's not clear now, but that this is just a complete god-awful mess, and he should not be running the business. But I think he also will be out of Tesla, not of his own volition. I think he'll be forced out of Tesla because I think that.
Okay. Now, I really like that one. Now, which one, if you had to flip a coin or whatever, which one comes first?
I think Tesla comes first because he's disinterested in running that company. He's just not running it right now. And
I think that's absolutely right, and I think the shareholders have noticed, as opposed to the absence of shareholders on the other side.
Yeah, and as Hart was contemplating making this prediction, Head really wanted to just check out what the shareholder rights were for Musk, and to what degree he's got what percentage of the company, and what are those super majority shares or super voting shares. Adam, do you know anything about the dynamics there?
No idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. Sorry, Head. Hart's made another prediction. So that's my 1 year, and then my 6 year, because I'm not at all surprised that I kind of felt going into this that we would see two themes. One, I just feel with Meta going so long on the metaverse, it's really tempting all of us to make metaverse and VR AR based predictions. Then also kind of generative AI based predictions. So I'm going to predict that in 6 years we no longer call it generative AI. In fact, the term AI has fallen out of fashion, and we are no longer thinking of these things as replacing people, but rather, God damn it, Hart's making another prediction here. God, sorry, Head, you're 0 for 3.
I was like, I've been hearing this prediction for 20 years.
No, but this time, no. Here's why. And that we are really thinking of these things as we should, and instead of thinking of them with kind of intelligent metaphors, or certainly with human metaphors, or as with AGI, we are thinking of them more with mechanical metaphors, more as like assist, auto, things where we are
task orientation. Yeah.
Yeah, and because I mean, honestly, like I think the large language. I mean, how badly, Adam, would you want to get a large language model to inhale our own technical documentation at Oxide so you could get it to write a glossary?
Oh my God, that'd be unbelievable.
Right, that'd be super useful. And it's like,
that'd be
it's super
or a glossary
useful,
or a summary, or
just being able to be like, hey, for this, I actually want you to I want to let you loose on this technical documentation, and I want you to write a FAQ for it, which feels like. And that feels incredibly powerful and useful, and no one's gonna be like, oh my God, you're putting someone out of business. It's like, no, you're doing something that actually we don't have the ability to do right now, and it would be really, really valuable, but we need to stop thinking of it as like a chatbot or something that's going to like write a term paper. This is actually and it is also stuff that is, I think, probably a good fit for it, because the stuff that it's inhaling is all technical documentation. Like you're not actually you're not actually slurping in QAnon conspiracy theories, and so I think that we are thinking of these technologies are important, and they're big. The generative technologies in particular are, we now realize, are big breakthroughs, but we also realize that they are not on a trajectory to replace human intelligence. AGI, they have not advanced AGI at all, but what they have done is that they've made possible some things that were not possible that are important and valuable. So is that it?
That's a terrific prediction. I love that, Brian. I think that, and actually, I welcome this new AI future, not AI future. Excuse me.
You're just welcoming the fact that Hart went 3-0 against Head for these predictions, and you just can't wait to watch Head get Head will cackle as I am 0-3 for these.
All right. Well, I got a couple more. In addition to my ludicrous unionized tech workers 1 year prediction, I've got a couple of mediocre 3-year predictions. First is that HPE is acquired. They have basically been flat like since the Diverger or whatever it was, and my even lower probability parlay on that.
Who are they acquired by? Yeah. Okay, do you have an acquirer?
Yeah. HP.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't know who the acquirer is, but that's my low probability parlay on that.
HP acquires HPE.
How beautiful would that be?
That would be very beautiful. I am hoping that HP, being the acquirer, will enforce some common sense, and HPE in particular, HPE and I've wondered like how much 8chan does Twitter need to devolve into before HPE GreenLake will stop spamming me with ads? Apparently, like not enough. Wherever we are now, it's like the last advertiser left, at least in my own feed, is HP. IBM has disappeared. I'm sure IBM is still advertising there, but IBM has disappeared from my feed on Twitter. When I've been going there actually less and less frequently, but so I probably only go there once every couple of days. But HPE is still there, so I welcome this acquisition, Adam, and it's a great prediction.
I don't know about that, but my maybe more my head prediction is that Brian, you're familiar with ZNS in the NVMe protocol?
Yeah.
The zone namespaces. This is like turning over more control over placement on these flash NAND devices. But there's been like Meta / Facebook, I guess, at the time, and Google have kind of backed away from that and said, you know what, flash vendors, actually, we don't want to completely have to drive. We'd still like you to do a bunch of stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff called flexible data placement that is more of a collaboration between the NVMe device and the software. So I think in 3 years, there's going to be a general purpose open source file system that is widely used. around this technology that then starts to enable kind of cheaper, lower DRAM, less complicated FTLs.
Is this your way of telling me that you're writing such a thing? Does Oxide author this? Is this a?
So probably not. In part because if we were going to write something, it would not be a general purpose file system. If we were going to write something, it would be something that enables block reads and block writes, like the kinds of things that operating systems want to do to us, not a general purpose file system that stores like database files or MPEGs or whatever.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So okay, yeah, and I think this is something. This is something I feel that you've been waiting for a while. I think we've been all waiting.
If you're saying that I've been predicting this for 20 years, like that's also fair.
I wanted to stop short of that. It felt mean spirited. It felt like but yeah, it feels like maybe 15 years.
Yeah, I wrote an article for the ACMQ maybe too long ago where I said we want this, we need this, and I think that there has not been the economic incentive to it, and there have not been the devices there. But I think with pressure from Google and Meta and the hyperscalers around some of these technologies, they're starting to make it much more feasible. So, here's hoping.
Yeah. Okay, so that's 3 years.
That was also 3 years. 6 years. I'm out on a limb here because I feel like either this is going to be folks saying you're crazy or that happened 2 years ago. What are you talking about? So in 6 years, I think that general purpose, like most general purpose CPUs, are going to be heterogeneous in terms of cores, meaning that there are going to be a bunch of cores that all execute the same ISA, but have very different performance and power characteristics, even within on the same die.
Okay, but so the same ISA is an interesting constraint. So I actually am. I am with you. I definitely think we're going to see these heterogeneous dies where we've got different compute elements that are on the die. But so you think they're going to have they'll share an ISA? I don't think they'll share.
Yeah. So the reason I think about shared ISA or why I think I think that makes it a more interesting prediction in that then you start to schedule workloads based on how much power you want to devote to it or characteristics of it, rather than having different entities that you've compiled specifically to run on a one core on another, but rather having the scheduling of these workloads be the responsibility of higher level software that or user intervention that then puts it in a more efficient place to run.
Interesting. So in other words, there's a single unified system that's able to see all of these. But yeah, interesting. No, I think it is interesting. I don't think that is not. We've certainly seen elements of that in computing's past, but I think that nowhere near to the degree that you're predicting. I think it's a good prediction. 6 years.
Well, I don't know the degree to which Apple is doing this to some degree, but I think with some of their M series chips,
for sure.
They're doing all kinds of fancy stuff
to some degree on different processors where they have efficiency cores and performance cores on the same die, and if the performance cores can burst to a higher clock rate, whereas the efficiency cores are a little bit more constrained. I think that some of that ends up just being binning, though, where they look at the quality of the die and work out which cores are good and which ones are bad, or even like print a die with 16 cores on it, and they find out that 6 of them are bad, so they sell it as a 10-core part. I think that this like efficiency versus power cores on the same die already exists in some packaging, but it may not be on every part.
I'm predicting that this becomes more or less ubiquitous. That general purpose CPUs kind of work this way.
And so I kind of wonder what you think the split is going to be on efficiency versus power on those. Like, do you have a thought in mind of in the next 6 years what do you think a core count would look like and what number of those are going to be like?
I really don't know. And then I was thinking about my predictions, thought about this one, and then looked back at my predictions from last year and saw that I had predicted made some predictions around power efficiency being increasingly, relevant to how when and how we run workloads. So I think that when I get in a predicting mindset, my mind turns to some of these power scarcity, environmental factors creeping into how we construct systems.
So I don't necessarily think that they're going to share an ISA. I think what we're going to see is more of this accelerated compute being brought on die. But I like the vision of being able to actually have a single system that has much greater insight into this. And it does actually remind us of a prediction that we didn't revisit, but should have, Adam, is we had a guest last year or a year ago talking about the NVIDIA acquisition of ARM, which was very much on a year ago, and saying that would ultimately, it would take a long time to fall apart, but it would fall apart over antitrust. And of course, it fell apart much faster than that. And that was a very prescient prediction. And I feel if NVIDIA had closed ARM, your prediction has got potentially a very different flavor to it, where it is. But absent that, I think it looks more like perhaps an x86 future or an x80. I'm not sure. You probably see that future for ARM as well, but it feels like NVIDIA would have had more a part of that future before that acquisition fell apart.
Yeah, having very heterogeneous, like single die kind of systems. Yeah, for sure.
And as long as we're gonna, sorry, go ahead.
No, go you after you, Brian.
Well, I was just going to say that we also have. Keep in mind, we've got Laura's prediction that RISC-V is going to be in the data center here. I mean, I think we've got 2 more years to go on that one. So maybe Discord will alienate their user base by putting RISC-V in the data center. Giving Laura a split decision.
Right. And then the last one I want to make for 6 years was that the VC funds that invested in 2022 and 2023 absolutely crushed it.
Oh, you think they actually crush it? The VC funds.
The funds that have invested in 22 and 23 have crushed it. That this winter that we're going to has caused extremely shrewd, capable, smart investment, and that generates a new frivolous bubble 6 years from now.
Only 6 years to the next bubble.
Yeah. Well, I think that VCs are going to be so convinced that they have the Midas touch that it's just going to be another cycle.
And how about all these VCs with these crypto funds, the Web3 funds, the term that we don't even recognize anymore, per your prediction a year ago?
Well, that was I'm talking about that was before the correction in March 22. I'm talking about the investments after that. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so the investments that are made in the coming apocalyptic wasteland are actually pay off hugely in 6 years.
Hugely, yeah, that's right.
That's exciting stuff. Did you make any 1 year predictions there? I feel like you got out of a 1 year prediction.
Oh, my Tech Workers of the World Unite.
The Tech Workers of the World Unite. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am gonna. So I actually feel that I think you're definitely onto something, in that I think that you're seeing increasing tension for sure, and we're seeing that kind of bad behavior. Certainly, I think that Musk normalized some bad behavior, as we talked about when we talked about layoffs. I wonder if we're not going to see more bad behavior as you have folks talk about unionization, because most execs in tech don't actually understand at all their legal obligations when it comes to workers who are organizing. You end up seeing labor violations as people are fired, for example, for advocating a union, which you can't do. So I wonder if we're going to see more of that in the coming year before we get to full on unions. But
yeah, maybe we won't get to that point, but I think that. I don't know. I think that obviously the pandemic has and will continue to have repercussions for how we work, and the relationship between employers and employees. But I also think it's inspired this, and maybe this is just because I moved from San Francisco to the East Bay, but folks seem to be a little more relaxed about their relationship with their employers, and maybe some of the folks who were strivers are striving a little less hard. and saying, I wouldn't, I've seen more people taking gaps and quitting without necessarily having the next thing lined up. And I think that there may be a relaxation and feeling like, while I agree, Brian, that there is this contraction is this winter that we're in, or is it coming, that will increase employer power. I think on the other hand, employees can sort of choose how much they want to acknowledge that, and I think that some of that might be coming as well.
It's going to be a tempestuous year, it sounds like.
Exactly. Strap in.
Which ultimately it is the union at HPE that forces their hand to be acquired by HP. I can't wait. Do we have? And I know we had. I'm just looking at the chat at some of the other. There's some good predictions in the chat. There is someone who a lot of folks agreeing that I don't see VR being mainstream. But you do have some folks who love their VR headsets, so it is definitely going to have its place. I
like this one. 1 year Twitter is bankrupt. In 3 years, Facebook/Meta is bankrupt. Those are bold predictions. Sam 801. Actually, one more bold than the other, I think.
Raggy asks if anyone has got a strongly held Copilot prediction. Adam, do you have any Copilot predictions? Have you used Copilot?
I have not used Copilot. I really should. Have you?
No, and I would not. Copilot, just the thought makes me. This is like Copilot reminds me of software engineers that I just cannot deal with writing code with. Namely, I really want to sit down and think about the problem with my notebook and be kind of free of distraction. And Copilot, it feels like it's exactly the opposite. It's just like someone who's very loquacious and certain and constantly suggesting things and won't shut up. It's like, okay, I really need. Can you leave, please? Can I just think about the problem by myself, please? I'll leave. Actually, I'll leave.
The prediction I wanted to make around this space that my heart talked my head out of was around this generative stuff putting low code and no code kinds of products out of business, where you can just say to the computer, this is the kind of program I want you to write. But my heart dissuaded me from that because I don't know who's going to debug that, and it certainly is not going to be the same thing that wrote it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take a seat.
The thing that I will put out as a prediction is probably more in the 3-year kind of time frame, but that you are going to see languages that are placing more priority on having a pre-trained Copilot style model than on documentation. Because ultimately, if it's a brand new language, but everybody gets the general gist of how to write code, you can make the argument that it's much easier to read code than it is to write it if you're writing it in a language you have no clue about. And if you're writing some sort of domain-specific Rust style, HDL style kind of thing, that I could make the argument that if you are going to be supplying a Copilot style thing, it will be possibly, more the tool that people reach for rather than Docs or Stack Overflow, because it doesn't tell you that you're a fucking moron every time you ask a question.
So I got such an experience about that. I also kind of feel that I feel kind of the same way about I know that IDE support is very valuable, but I also feel that it allows people to kind of paper up the complexity in a system and allows a system to potentially become. I've seen it feels to me that you see these Java-based systems that to me are insanely complicated and really require an IDE to reason about. Adam, am I characterized?
Yes, you are sounding like a cave person. What was your question?
Well, hey, hang on. Part of the problem with Java is that that was just everyone getting so high on the concept of object-orientedness that of course I'm going to need an enterprise FizzBuzz factory builder enterprise fizz factory, right?
Yes.
But Brian, for example, I can't. I struggle to write or understand Rust without Rust Analyzer. Or maybe put another way, like
You,
I don't really want to live in a world without Rust Analyzer. This is not an intervention, unlike the other times.
What would an intervention look like? I understand this is not an intervention, but if it
So,
were
for
an
example,
intervention, what would it look like?
I would be saying your name a lot more. But Brian,
feels like we're leaving that unsaid.
but like when I'm looking at code review on GitHub, I'm like, what the fuck are the intermediate types? In part because I'm in some more mappy foldy code here and there. And you're like, I don't want to, like, I love these annotations that the IDE is giving me these days.
All right, so then, does that relate at all to Copilot? So in terms of I mean, to the prediction that we're going to have languages that have, instead of having documentation, have like, no, don't worry, this like assistant will help you write it.
I think it's a great prediction, and I hate it.
I mean, it's not too far divulged from the prediction that Brian made of having a tool that could ingest your documentation and generate a language model or a model based on that documentation. It's just another step along that journey, right? Instead of generating a glossary, you could generate a bot coworker that you could ask a question of, and it could tell you the answer, right? Like, what happens when I load a model from the database using this method or something, right? It could give you an answer in text as it may come from the documentation, or it may come from the someone who read the documentation and is able to spit out something from that. So, like, it's not that far removed from that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is, then you're kind of getting closer and closer to like Clippy, which what are your feelings on Clippy, Adam? I like Clippy.
Complicated. No. Yeah, I think I mostly like Clippy, and one of the reasons I like Clippy is because I'm not ashamed to admit it, I use VS Code. I use an IDE, and it like lets me like one click like try it out, its suggestions, and then one keystroke to invert it if I hate it.
This is Clippy some sort of Rust thing as opposed to like the Microsoft's paperclip.
Yes, it named in homage for some weird reason.
It's a very weird reason. I kind of feel like anyone who's going to get this reference is going to be disgusted by it, and someone who's not going to get the reference, like, what's the point? It's very strangely named. But yes, this is not Clippy as in Microsoft Clippy circa 1996 or whatever. This is Clippy, the Rust program.
Linter.
The Rust linter, well, it advises on best practices. So it will say, and which I mostly agree with. There's some of them that I think of like, oh, come on. I mean, really, that's more readable to you, Clippy. But there are also some situations where it gets a little bit confused, and it's found something that is like not great, but its suggestion is like definitely worse. But the fact that it's not great is actually a good point. Like, all right, this is a good point. And then I do feel like, man, the thing that it definitely like busts me on, which I do appreciate, is when it looks. Okay, that's an intervention right there. Like, that's a goddamn intervention. No, not file size at all.
Okay, just a guess.
But why don't you get this off your chest? Like, let's just be done with it.
Have you ever loaded up dtrace-c in GitHub? I'll tell you haven't, because it just doesn't load, because you'd still be sitting there.
And that's my fault. My fault. It is that's my, like, their poor software is my fault.
Well, it's somebody's fault.
Look, it is actually, when they did the port of the I mean, dtrace has been ported in several different ways, but the Linux folks at Oracle, the first thing they did is broke it into a million different files. And to me, it just doesn't add that much value. I know that this is. You're fine.
No, I'm actually with you, and I was just saying because Clippy has that kind of fussiness. I would also say the FreeBSD folks did the same thing, and they immediately regretted it, and it didn't take 6 years for that prediction to come true.
Yeah, and it's like, because it's like you're actually. I mean, there's definitely time and a place for, obviously, for different files and different to use the file system as part of program structure. And I probably, okay, look, fine. I probably use it less than maybe even I should, but certainly less than others.
Like we talked about Java. I mean, one of the things I hate about Java is the 10 billion files necessitated by it. So I'm with you on the other side of it being just as problematic.
Yeah, there is another extreme. And I do feel like, so that's a good example of where when you've got a gazillion tiny files spread throughout the file system, you are really relying on the development environment. Like you can't, you're not just saying anyone can kind of bring an editor. It's like you actually need, in order to reason about this, you're going to need something that really understands how the file system structure correlates to the program structure. And that can be a bit brutal. But
what does Clippy actually ding you for?
Clippy, where Clippy really busts my chops, and it's just like totally right, is when I hit some of its complexity on type complexity. And this is where I'm getting like dirty. I mean, because I think one of the things I do love about Rust is very rigorous, but it's also very loose in some delightful ways. I mean, and it's easy to get strung out on tuples, like real easy. And it's easy. Maybe it's easier for me than maybe other people.
You're like it's great. Like I can have this incredibly complicated structure, and I don't have to name anything. I can just do .17 and pull out the 17th component.
You can de-sugar it when you need it, so you can actually it like having a result of
Brian,
an option of a B tree of a tuple.
No, are you just producing massive unnamed bit fields?
No, these are byte fields, but it's like it's kind of easy to accrete and this is when Clippy blows the whistle on this. It's like always right. It's like, what is this? And you're like, Clippy, what is this? Clippy's like, this should be a type. You're like, Clippy, this actually should be a type. It's like time to actually turn this into an actual like structure. So and then the other one I hit that whenever Clippy is upset about the number of arguments to a function, it's right, and I know it's right, and I've known it's right before I ran it. So I think it's good. I like Clippy, and I generally like its suggestions. Other than like, does the is empty thing bother you? It does not.
As opposed to len equals
0. It's like, really? That's the hill we're going to die on? That's like weird.
I don't know. I sort of like that one, but in that it's simple and right. But I agree with you that it's like, come on, what are we doing here?
This is where I feel like if we can channel some of our colleagues, I feel like Cliff would explain to me why is empty would actually allow the compiler to generate better code than len equals 0. So I'm sure there's a good reason for it somewhere. But then that one I also just accept it. I'm not fighting that one. In general, not fighting Clippy. I think Clippy's pretty good. But so I guess the question is like I like Clippy, but Copilot gives me an autoimmune reaction. And I guess this is my prediction when that had more heart than head, is that I would like to see some of the technological foundation that is being used in something like Copilot actually go into things that I would use more the way I would use Clippy. I would use it more as a tool and less as a colleague. So
Brian, are we hearing that dtrace is adding large language model support to the prompt?
That's right. Well,
can you imagine writing a Descript with Copilot sitting over your shoulder?
No, I did this. This is what I did. I asked it, and this is where you realize that like this actually. This ChatGPT as it exists today is more gimmick. So no, I asked it to instrument I asked it to like instrument functions during boot time or something like that. And the script that it gave me was wildly wrong, and it gave it to me with like total confidence. And I asked some follow-up questions about like, who taught you to do it this way? And it was crazily wrong. And I think like dtrace lives in this like really tough milieu with respect to these large language models, where it is like large enough that it can like, go read Brenton's blogs or whatever. I mean, it can inhale enough information to get some confidence, but not actually enough information to get because it's not Rust or it's not it is not a system that many people actually use, and enough use it to put stuff on the internet, but not enough to actually be able to, I think, correctly train these models. So have you done this at all, Adam? Have you had it write Descripts?
No, I haven't.
You should have it do it, because I also feel it's like, and this is where I'm also realizing like this thing is a bullshit artist. with like, as with a bullshit artist, when they're bullshitting about a topic that you don't know, you're like, oh, this person seems convincing, and then they like drift into territory that you know well. You're like, that's just totally wrong. Why would anyone? Did you see me?
Brian, I mean, part of that's kind of expectations, right? Like, I mean, are you considering it on the level of a senior engineer or on the level of like an intern who happens to like be familiar with Python because they learned it in school?
Well, so
like, you know, like if like a lot of us could really like, you know, just like, okay, fine, yeah, write the boring parts, I can code review it, right? Like, here, do my unit test, right?
the
versus,
problem
like,
is,
I expect you to like generate like a rate extort or something out of nowhere.
Matt, I would rather I'll write the unit test. It can write the code. I'd rather split it up that way.
Well, and I think that the problem is that it's certain and it's wrong. It is the problem.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's actually not a good attribute in a junior engineer. That's actually a terrible attribute in a junior engineer.
Right. That's actually the worst attribute.
That's actually the worst attribute.
Like, you want the person who can ask questions.
Well, yeah. I mean, the question is, do you interpret what it puts out as confidence, right? Like,
oh, it's confident.
Like, I mean, like, it spits out something because it's a computer, right?
Right.
Like, I guess they could put like smiley faces next to it if they like are really happy, and like, you know, like sad faces if they're like, yeah, and then like, you know, like the scared like begging emoji if they really have no effing clue what's going on. Like, I don't know. But
so all right. So speaking of which, we got to get to you because you came in, I think, with a 3-year. Do you have a 1 year and a 6 year? In terms of predictions?
I mean, like, one year's got to be something about CXL since you're a computer company. Like 2023, the year of CXL, I don't know whether it nosedives or like actually continues after that. Whether you'd call it the year of CXL because it's the only one or because it's like the start of it. I don't know. Well, what's your take on it?
Well, you're getting me in a wounded state because we just came out of we are been spending this week doing our compliance for electromagnetic interference. So you catch me just coming out of the chamber, watching the EE team try to hone in on exactly where we are seeing radiated emissions at particular frequencies and where that's coming from. And actually, CXL came up as part of this. And part of the challenge is, boy, you push those clocks over cables are just bad news. There's a lot of challenge when you got a clock over a cable. So I'm probably a victim of my work day to day. But I definitely think that is a challenge with respect to CXL. I personally think that there's also this very weird idea that CXL was like, don't worry, Optane is dead, but it's being replaced by CXL. You're like, that makes no sense at all. This idea that it's going to kind of allow for disaggregated memory seems kind of nutty to me. So I don't know. I think who knows? I'm not sure that we're going to see that in the next year. But
I mean, so like, are you thinking of that in the sense of like the wildest dreams mesh network over PCIe fabric disaggregated your entire data center, one gigantic machine with CXL?
That's right. Yes.
Okay, that's never flipping happening. Like,
the
internet is the way. Yeah.
Yes, CXL fever dream, not going to happen.
But like, in terms of like, you know, replacing like the DDR4 buses, maybe like that almost sounds more plausible.
Yeah, I don't know. CXL feels like a solution in search of a problem right now.
It also feels like it missed its calling as a cryptocurrency exchange. I mean, like, why? I mean, shouldn't FTX be a bus transport and CXL be the?
I mean, Brian, I'm just saying you have the power.
And then Matt, do you have a 6 year?
6 year prediction: we will see an increase in the rate of improvement of power efficiency of high-end computing.
All right.
So like on average, you see like roughly 10x over 6-ish years. We might be seeing like 20 or more this time.
That's you know, and I think
you know what? If you want me to put like some numbers on it, you know, exaflop for a megawatt.
Exaflop for a megawatt. That is the way to bring that prediction home. I like it. Yeah, I think Adam, this is kind of in line within the spirit of your prediction last year, and I'm with you, Matt. I think that is, and I like the exaflop for a megawatt. I like. But I do think that we've got to be close to beginning to really think about these efficiencies writ large. Of course, it does also feels like this, along with like the death of titanium. I'm trying to think. Oh, and also that the main memory becomes non-volatile. Adam, that was also one of our classic evergreen that is definitely not yet come to pass.
Titanium didn't really ever make sense for how it was marketed, right? Like, there's no way that was ever going to be like a consumer PC architecture, right? Not saying they didn't try, but like.
And then one of the questions, I don't know if you've seen the chat, there's a question about Rust predictions regarding the Linux kernel. I think that we are going to see whether it's, I think the Linux kernel too, but, or Adam, did you reply no to that about the Rust?
No, I said, I was just saying, has anyone made any?
No, they have not. Yeah.
Can I just tee up another one here with regards to the computer science Rust course?
Sure.
I think that you will see a better chance of it succeeding in the EE department than in the CS department.
That's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting because I also feel like this is something I was trying to kind of find a way to express earlier, that I do feel that to best appreciate Rust, you really need to understand memory, and you kind of need to understand what the alternatives are. Just like the presence of structured languages did not chase assembly out of the curriculum, and we hit assembly like pretty early in the curriculum. We hit assembly. Often first year students learn assembly, and that to me was because I kind of like, I don't know about you, Adam, but as coming into university, the assembly that I had done had basically been from copying out of magazines or what have you. Like I had seen it, but I had no idea what I was doing. And then to learn that like you have these primitives and to really understand what memory meant, I felt like it was a big aha moment, and I kind of feel that you need that aha moment before you really appreciate Rust. So Matt, to your point, I think getting a little more traction in the from the EE side is really, that's interesting. I think that seems plausible.
And I've got also sort of like a completely different set of reasons for it, and it's more sort of the clean water variety. Because like, the first thing in C that you learn is that a char is 8 bits. And the second thing that you learn is that a char is not always guaranteed to be 8 bits, because a byte may be 7 or 9 because of somebody in the 1960s, even though the rest of the world has moved on. And like, Rust, like with like U8, U16, I16, F32, F64.
U128.
Right. Like, like all of this, like, actually is like, okay, good. We're finally being honest about how a computer looks in 2022. In addition to that, like if you're teaching microcontroller C, which is normally like the first programming course in EE,
yeah,
you don't necessarily have malloc, right? You may be writing in an environment with like 4K of RAM. So you're not going to be mallocing and freeing and doing all the stuff that like makes people scream at Rust, because like what do you mean you're not, like, what do you mean you don't have a malloc? Oh, okay, fine. We can work with that.
Yeah,
like you get something that's like a printf, but actually like decent,
It's interesting, and we certainly have got, with the EEs at Oxide who have learned Rust at Oxide and have made contributions to Hubris and the other things that we built, and have used. I dare say, Adam, for our colleague Nathaniel, really started his first Rust was in Hubris on the microcontroller, but then when it came time to do something totally different, where he was collecting part numbers and doing something that was very kind of much more, strictly in userland, definitely not no standard, absolutely standard. Went to go use Rust to do it. So I think there's some interest. That's an interesting thought, Matt, for sure.
Yeah, I really like that, Matt. That's a good one.
So sorry, go ahead.
The other point on that, I guess, is like to go way off into left field on like Erlang. One of the things that like Armstrong, one of the inventors of Erlang, says is like, all that we did is just acknowledge the physical reality that the speed of light exists, and therefore cache coherent NUMA is a fiction. And like, guess what? Erlang just popped out of that. And like, I feel like Rust is a slightly less opinionated way, or a slightly differently opinionated version of the same, effectively. And like, if you start with relativity and like physics and like, no, there is a physical computer core, like the abstractions make more sense just in the sense of acknowledging that the physical world exists.
Yeah, no, that's very true. All right. Well, I think Adam, I know we've gone. We always know this is going to be a big one, but we've gone.
Yeah.
I'm sure your kid's making his own predictions. I'm sure.
Right.
Maybe he's predicting that he's going to be upset that dinner is late. So. But
we're on to season 3 of the Oxide+Friends. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, and it's been
there.
Who not? And this has been, I mean, really terrific. My audio problems, my grievous audio problems aside, embarrassing audio problems aside, this has been a lot of fun, Adam. And I'm glad that you highlighted at the top that we actually. Made you got us as a podcast. You made your New Year's resolution to do that, and that has been huge. I think to get that vector has been fun for other people to see it. My mom has started listening to the back catalog. By the way,
Thanks. Yeah, my dad too. He listened to the one with Sean Silkoff and was relieved when we sorted out the audio issues. So, some things don't change.
Some things don't change, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been great to have everyone in this new, the new vector. We are glad that Laura's prediction is not yet correct, as she is also, I think, relieved that her prediction is not yet correct. Discord continues to be a pretty good experience, but interesting themes this year. So year's themes, just to recap, Adam, it seems like we had a lot of generative AI, ChatGPT related predictions, a lot of AR, VR related predictions, and a lot of Rust related predictions, actually. Mm-hmm. I think it feels like the good themes all.
Yeah, and if you didn't get them in, feel free to post them and onto the GitHub site, and we'll review them next year or in 3 years or in 6 years, assuming we're still doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who made predictions in the chat, a lot of good predictions in the chat too. So let's be sure to get those into the show notes so we can actually capture those. A lot of good stuff, as always. All right, Adam. I vow. So I think I'm just gonna I'm not gonna try to use the. I'm gonna stick with the phone here. So I vow to not have crappy audio.
That's good resolution to end on.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.